Are you saying something, Sean?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I had myself muted. Okay, that actually does bring up a question that I have. The attack when the one that led us to first meeting Valentine, I think, the one that Evelyn got hurt in,
The one by the Vitalis.
them. Um, what was that? Just a random thing, or was that orchestrated for some reason?
Valentine actually isn't responsible for organizing that. That was from the Fratelli organized crime family who wanted to push into Queens. It was one of a design plot hook that I wanted to give you guys within the initial 2 chapters of the game. Of course, that happened all the way back in Chapter 2. Just to get you all interested and motivated and investigating and into your characters. Ultimately, what ended up being the resulting affair was that, Valentine caught word of it, and as he ended up, visiting the middleman from time to time, he exerted pressure upon the Fratelli currently in charge, who I believe I named Lorenzo? I believe Lorenzo was his name. It's hard for me to remember the names, and I've actually deleted the middleman as one of the maps, so I can't actually check. I didn't think you guys would ever go back. If you guys did, we would have just done it off the cuff, or I would have imported it from one of the old campaign files. But yeah, that wasn't kindred organized, that was just mortal interest. It was, whenever I gave you guys those rumors from the rumor mill, and I gave you all some shared ones and some unique ones, it was to sort of clue you in and try to enmesh you guys with the universe, and also to enmesh myself. So, it was just something interesting to investigate. Not kindred organized, Valentine didn't do anything about it, but at least in terms of like organizing it. But, Fratelli just wanted to come in, and they were causing trouble and mischief. And it ended up being in Astoria, and you guys had a problem with it. But before you guys could resolve the problem yourselves, Valentine ended up coming in like, look at how awesome I am. Yep, I'm Valentine.
Yep. When he's not singing 80s hair metal ballads, he is certainly kicking ass, taking names with the Mafia.
Who says they happen at different times?
There you go. That is a bad assumption on my part. But you brought up the rumors from the beginning of the game. There's one rumor that I wanted to follow up on, but I just never got around to it with Byron. There was one where it says the Ventru plot to track down Sabat by irradiating them. And I can't remember how it was worded, but basically, in one of the episodes, like, hey, can we get a Geiger counter? And I just never got around to getting that. So is that bullshit or is that true?
Something that I pulled from the New York by Night book. The Ventru sort of colluded with the Tremere in this aspect to prioritize and target key members of the Sabbat by devising what ended up being known on the streets as Methuselah blood. And they got the Setites in on the arrangement, and this shit ended up getting imported into Setite, domains, and they ended up in turn peddled it to members of the Sabbat who were like, fucking Methuselah blood, this shit is off the chain, yo. And it ended up being irradiated. And so whenever the battle for New York came, it was a significant, valuable asset of intelligence to be able to pinpoint the havens of these war packs of the Sabbat because of how easy it was to locate them with Geiger counters.
Looking at the rumors that I was given, it makes me wonder which one of my rumors were true and which ones were, utter bullshit. Like, I have one, someone tipped off the Society of Leopold before the Camerlas at New York operations. Did that actually happen? I'm assuming it sounds like the most likely one out of my stories.
And yes, and I had mortal hunters designed to be within this campaign world. They've definitely been active. Most of them have died. We never ended up with a situation where I thought that you guys were so not busy that you needed to have a mortal hunter.
That really would have spiced things up.
And you guys never ended up stumbling upon any one of their affairs. There's just been so many other things you guys were doing that I didn't feel it was right to introduce that as well. You're just too busy.
We were
So-
too busy to be hunted to death.
To be hunted to death by another group.
One last question about my rumors. There's one about Prince Calibros. The abdication of Prince Pro Tempore Calibros is a ruse to draw elements who seek to exploit the Camarilla's weakness. I'm assuming this was bullshit.
I think so.
It was bullshit.
I mean, it might have been one of those things that ended up being bullshit that could have changed to be true later, like, had we talked to Prince Calibros ever. But yeah, it just seemed, kind of, at the beginning of the game it seemed believable, but now I'm just like, no.
Oh, here's one that I fully intended to use later on, but she died, so it couldn't happen. Was Helene ever bloodbound to Thomas Arturo as payment for the extensive remodeling he did to her haven?
A 3-stage, but she was definitely 2/3 of the way there. Eugenio Estevez was also 2/3 of the way there.
Really?
As a payment for the grandiose services of Thomas Arturo and his legendary design skills. Absolutely.
Well, that's kind of, that puts a weird little spin on the Princedom campaigns for Helen Panhard and Eugenio.
It definitely, Thomas Arturo definitely supported Helen becoming prince. He, not just for like a sort of like a power thing, but he readily agreed with what she stood for. He never threw his weight in that much because, like, oh yeah, one harpy siding with another. What the fuck do you know? But, it was sort of the situation where, of course, he wants to consummate the blood bond and have it be the full 3 stages. They obviously recognize the peril of it, and they don't want to be 3 stages of bloodbound. So it's kind of like, how do I sort of try to get them into a situation where they want to become 3 stages bloodbound? How do I do this? So a whole sort of underlay current of relations happening there.
Wow.
Yeah, that was going through my head when Helene Panhard, when she was looking like she might be the next prince before she was murdered by Marlena. Byron was definitely gonna try to use that somehow. I don't know how he would have done it. Probably would have stuck his foot in his mouth again, or never taken it out, as Sean is wont to say.
I have a question. Had one of us been Tremere, would we have a rumor about Eugenio being bloodbound to Thomas Arturo?
I don't know. I never thought about it because none of you were Tremere.
Just an interesting thought. I'm supposing that since the 2 people that he had bloodbound to both ended up dead, it kind of put a damper on some things for Thomas Arturo.
There are, of course, other individuals who are partly bloodbound to him. It's, he accepts payment in a variety of forms, from boons to all sorts of manners of wealth and what have you. His prices are steep. And in exchange, there's sort of a description in the New York by Night book of how, individuals who manage to have their sort of domains, stylized by him, they end up, accruing like a point of status. It's a big fucking deal. He's really goddamn awesome at it. It's his fucking thing.
Okay, guys, we need to get Thomas Arturo to design the Majestic for us.
But since his prices are so steep, people end up paying in the form of bloodbound, bloodbounding. And including influential people such as Eugenio and Helen.
Yeah, we now have the sheriff in our coterie, so he, sure, let's have David Green get 1 point bloodbound and get the Majestic done.
Fuck you.
I'm just saying, he has no interest in the rest of us. I mean, you'd be the only one, and yeah, right, like David's going to do that.
David is already too bloodbound to too many people. That's one reason he'd actually be really okay with, Joseph and Marcus going on a vacation for a while.
Nah. We can't have the sitcom adventures of Joseph and Marcus just yet.
I don't mean going on a vacation together. Just, go the fuck away.
That would be interesting, considering that Joseph would always have it in the back of the mind to just shoot him in the back with the crossbow that you never knew I had.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
a
I
bit
think
harder. It's gonna be a bit
I just
hard
figured you'd get
not to know that, mind you.
I just figured you'd get a party bus, and then you take all those demolition charges you got from Match and just put them under the bus, and then at the end of the show, I'm considering like an odd couple show, you just like blow up the bus with Marcus.
If he didn't cheat the entire time, reading minds and whatnot.
Because invisibility is playing fair.
That I end up discussing and handling right now without prompt. We'll go ahead and handle this issue with guest commentary from my air conditioner because fuck you. So the whole situation ended up getting resolved not from telepathy, but it was through the power of Auspex. I handle all of the Auspex rolls in secret, in which case I had Marcus make an Auspex roll, where I rolled it myself, to observe the information that Joseph presented to the group, and basically be able to draw and make connections of, hey, this sounds like the fucking little girl I kept fucking seeing. This must be her, Penelope Nelson. He succeeded. The most awesome one that he ever ended up making, I'll sort of paint the stage for this, because this is actually a story I've wanted to tell. So, Joseph Chung standing in Marcus Paulson's New Haven. He's got his fucking shotgun drawn. He's got it leveled at the goddamn door. He's gonna fuck up Marcus. It's gonna fucking happen. Marcus is out partying. He just got rid of the little girl. She got sent to who knows the fuck where by a necromancer. And, you know, woo, yeah, I'm fucking awesome. I love it. He's lost humanity. He's lost conscience. But he knows somewhere deep within his recesses that Joseph might figure out that Marcus did something about this, and that Joseph, being unstable, this could be a problem. So I go, alright, let's assign a difficulty to this. We'll give Marcus a chance. I'm going to make this an Auspex difficulty 10 roll, because there is a slight glimmer, a sliver that Marcus can piece this together. And the difficulty I set so high because Marcus wasn't actually taking any steps or pains to protect himself. He rolled 3 10s. And I'm like, well, fuck me! And I'm like, well, that's it. Marcus knows. And so from there on, it's kind of like, you know, Marcus was able to avoid Joseph to some extent because of the knowledge that Marcus realized the fact that Joseph wishes to exchange thoughts with Marcus.
By thoughts, he means lead.
He wants to have words with him.
So there's not any situations that I did 2 other Auspex rolls for him at that point. And eventually, you know, I ended up telling him, it's kind of like, you know, because he asked me about it whenever he was walking out of a club drunk and Joseph was there waiting for him. I'm kind of like, there's nothing more Auspex can tell you. Auspex has told you that Joseph wishes to exchange thoughts with you. He is stalking you. You got a room in a fucking hotel because he's after you. If you want to go out and keep fucking partying and being a dumb shit and not preparing for this, that's your own fucking dumbass fault. Auspex can't protect you from idiocy. But
Wait,
yeah.
Why did Byron get it then? Damn it.
But yeah, I was all willing, you know, I was readily expecting Marcus to go stumbling into his New Haven, Joseph to fucking surprise him, get his shot off, blow his ass unconscious, put him in torpor. But he rolled 3 10s on an Auspex check at difficulty 10. And I'm like, that's fucking it, Marcus wins. We're done.
That was pretty neat.
There's some behind-the-scenes footage for you.
All I knew is that you said I was rolling like a god. I didn't know what that meant, and now I do.
So what was the deal with the Ouroboros and the lack of rain in the sand on that stormy night on Staten Island.
The whole Tzimisce malaise, just fucking with the coterie.
Yeah, that one.
Yep. That was just everything pertaining to the whole Tzimisce malignance, from the eldritch horror haunting you guys to Sevalod himself existing, to the fact that the Tzimisce antediluvian is fucking below New York City. All of that shit all corroborates and results of the Ouroboros appearing.
Ah, so it actually is beneath New York City.
Yes, and it exists. Not the Niktuku. It is what's responsible for so many Nosferatu vanishing.
Gerard? Or Gerard?
Definitely, had some involvement with, dealing with his political enemies. But he himself is still definitely, petrified. It's not a lie. He just thinks it's the Natuku. There was the whole sort of like a joking sort of, a half-joke sort of scene about Tzimisce with David and Gerard, but the Tzimisce antediluvian is actually under New York City. I decided that on on the sort of like whenever I generated this world. I'm like, yeah, he's there.
Alright, I kind of figured based on the description of the fleshy growths in the sewers and stuff. But I was wondering if it definitely was Tzimisce himself, or if it was just some other Tzimisce.
Yep. And to an extent, it explains why Sevalod is so drawn to being here. He's sort of hearing the siren call somewhere in his head, and he's not quite sure how to interpret it. And it's why Lombok Ruthen fucking fled. Just to address the point, I ended up making Lombok 4th generation, and Methuselah with Tzimisce as his sire, because of how I ended up liking that, for the purposes of the story. But Lombok, the reason why he fled the Battle of New York rather than helping the Sabbat, wasn't because he was a coward, it's because he was escorted through the one minion of Tzimisce itself, down far beneath New York City, and came into direct contact with his sire, Tzimisce, and escaped like a bat out of hell. He was done. Fuck this, I'm out.
And then, of course, he's also a coward.
Too, Tzimisce was like, join me, and Lombok was like, no!
Did he lose a hand?
No, I hadn't, I didn't even think, I think he's still intact. I think Lombok Ruthen is still intact, yeah. He's somewhere within the New York State area, I resolved, on the off chance that any of the coterie ever ended up trying to look for him for whatever godforsaken reason. The only person who ever ended up expressing an interest in his whereabouts was Sevalod Cervini, who wanted to know. That's it. It was just a sort of a thing that exists, where Lombok Ruthen is still being haunted by sort of apparitions that appear. Sort of like what Marcus Paulson sees, but with the sort of undercurrent of it being from his master. The Tzimisce progenitor itself.
I mean, the furthest out any of us ever even went was Yonkers, right?
Past Yonkers a little ways. It's a little bit there, up the road. And Marcus and Joseph both went there to visit the Necromancer.
Was that Necromancer a part of any group, or was he just independent?
Who really kept his afflictions and conditions to himself, and, through sort of contacts like Match, was able to get referrals, which would have people with, bring mortal bodies to him, and in exchange, the Necromancer would do things, like consult with spirits, or rip them away from people and cast them into the abyss. He was just a survivor.
What's going on with the Gangrel? Why were they so into helping Kadir against the Sabbat?
Actually ended up coming to New York City as a way to prove herself, because her sire and her grandsire ended up making their names across the country for dealing with Sabbat. And so for the Battle of New York, Jezebel arrived and she brought along a sort of pack of Gangrel, and it was for recognition basis that she fought. Recognition, pride, and with that would come power. Her main problem was that when the Battle of New York ended, she definitely had recognition and respect, but all of those people who fought the Battle of New York, most of them left. They were like, alright, we killed the Sabbat, we fucking did awesome, we did a good job, we're going back home, or whatever. And Jezebel ended up staying, with very few people who remembered her accomplishments, or even cared, for that matter. As for that ended up being why she stayed, and why she was interested in helping to hunt the Sabbat, which she certainly hated the Sabbat, she had no love for them. And it was sort of the hopes of that, even though the rest of the Gangrel had basically split away, that, individual Gangrel are individual, and they don't let, clan politics exactly speak for them and their attitudes. It's kind of their thing. They make their own decisions.
On a related note, David actually would be trying to tap that resource if it ever came to time to really start a new offensive against the Sabbat. Just as Kadir had.
Trials of their own to look forward to. I mean, very few kindred, especially here, care about them. They kind of see it as domains that should not belong to the Gangrel, because the Gangrel aren't a part of New York City. The domains were rather given by Calibros to the Gangrel in hopes of sort of diffusing tension. This was before the Gangrel had parted ways with the Camarilla. And the hopes of, basically awarding and recognizing the contributions the Gangrel who live within the city had made to the Battle of New York. But the Gangrel didn't much care, and everyone else excoriated him and thought, it was a dumbass move. It's possible Carter Vanderwade might do something about that, now that he's Prince, and the Gangrel aren't a part of the Camarilla. That remains to be seen. He might wait some more time before he makes a move in that regard, if he does.
So, gargoyle disciplines being known by non-gargoyles. What's up with that?
It's a thing.
Right, what's up with that thing?
Gargoyle, you ever think about that?
What?
I said maybe Leslie Cutter's a gargoyle. You ever think about that?
Yeah, and I decided it was a little bit silly to think about.
Well,
She?
no, she's
Or was
not.
she?
No. She's not some gargoyle who was fucking vicissituted into appearing like a normal human being. It just... I suppose so you're asking about Leslie Cutter in general then, Aaron?
Yeah, more or less.
Leslie Cutter was a caitiff. And as caitiff end up wanting to be, they sometimes manifest queer powers. They can be associated with oracular benefits or gifts or what have you. She in particular was a powerful caitiff, and as such she was hunted by the Camarilla upper echelon, at least Theo Bell, who had an interest in her because of rumors and whispers of her capabilities. She was being hunted by the Sabbat for the potential that she could have if only they could apply her. and she was being hunted by other aspects, including Solod Cervini, who, of course, being his experimenting, inquisitive state, wanted to see, what there all was to Leslie Cutter. Whether she had other properties that were latent within her that she couldn't manifest. I mean, she certainly was a powerful combatant if she ever applied herself to doing it. And that's what I wanted to get across whenever you ended up joining forces with her in that one bit outside of Joseph's church, whenever the Sabbat came after her. She, with her feral claws, had quite capabilities. And the Viscerotica I added so that she could have amazing stealth capabilities without actually being able to obfuscate. So as such, she could eavesdrop and listen in on quite a lot.
Did Sevalot ever end up doing something interesting with her?
Sevalot did many interesting things to her and with her.
Go on.
No, I'm not gonna go on. I think that's left best to the imagination. She is still unalive. If that is any consolation or of any interest, she did not die in the Tremere assault, nor was she actually captured by the Tremere. She managed to escape, and she is still an agent of Sevalod Cervini, a willing one. So twisted has her mind become.
What was the giant tentacle beast?
The giant tentacle creation was from Sevalod Cervini. It was I don't actually know how to pronounce this, the Vizod, VZOHD, which even among Tzimisce elders, they can count the amount of existing ones or the amount of ones they've seen on one hand. Maybe two if they're really old. They are, for anyone who's unfamiliar, amalgamations of, traditionally human beings. It's just basically a super ghoul, sort of manifested together to serve the will of its master. Very, very hard to control, let alone create. Sort of takes someone very trained in animalism to even give it commands. As such, it ended up being finished a bit before the Tremere attack on Sevalod's domain, and Sevalod had left it dormant. Not exactly a kill switch design, but sort of an idea of, if something should ever happen to me, Sevalod's powerful enough to basically say, hunt down the Tremere, the hated warlocks. And so, the moment Sevalod stopped communicating with it, the manifestation sprung into action, and that ended up in many, many Tremere deaths. And would have ended up in many more deaths in general, were it not for, as it turns out, Sevalod himself interfering in another way.
On that note, Sevalod clearly once had a much more intact personality, regardless of whether or not it was more or less evil. Is there any way that Sevalod could have some of that sanity salvaged? And was it the close proximity to Tzimisce himself that did it?
I think a combination of delving into the we are all experiments and nothing is sacred really illustrated itself in the fact that Sevalod became so out of touch with the reality and world around him. He became so insular, sort of to protect his knowledge and to prevent discovery, that he lost a grasp on concepts. And for all of the eavesdropping and telepathy and sometimes even venturing out or daring to possess a creature that, maybe even like a powerful animal that could stalk the streets, just to observe, it really couldn't help him keep touch, especially as he ended up developing a condition that old Tzimisce tend to accompany, and that's, now I forgot the damn phobia. I can't fucking forget it. a sort
Agoraphobia.
of, there we go, an agoraphobia, where he was in essence afraid of leaving the confines of his haven, so accustomed to it, the realm that he could control, he had become. I also do think proximity to Tzimisce itself and sort of like its influence. For whatever reason, the Antediluvian never called Vsevolod to it. Maybe Vsevolod ends up being stronger-willed somehow than Lambach. Maybe Vsevolod is on his own path. It's hard to say what the Antediluvian's purpose is in that affair, but the Antediluvian would certainly know Vsevolod is there, even if Vsevolod doesn't know the other way around. But I definitely do think a combination of those affairs lead to Vsevolod's sort of discontinuity. And he ends up with the subjects that Germain brought to him. It was sort of an interview sort of affair where he would consume the knowledge of these people, like, what is it like out there in the world? And he would do this for so many other subjects, and as a result he would adopt their mannerisms, their speech patterns, and he would try out all peculiar ways of body language in an attempt to converse with people, just to experiment with it and see how it was. Not for any particular love or joy of it, it just happened. Whether it could be salvaged, it's not actually something I ever considered. My instinct would be to go with no, so because of how ancient vampires tend to get set in their ways. It's quite likely that the ultimate fate would end up being for him to be consumed into Tzimisce itself.
If I had an incendiary grenade, could I have finished him off once and for all before he got out of his cocoon?
Done anything to the cocoon.
Damn it, I thought that it was still susceptible to fire.
Actually find out the statistics for the cocoon by checking in the rule book. The cocoon is a possible elder power under vicissitude, if memory serves. And it is very, very strong, even against aggravated damage.
Holy shit. Complete protection from sunlight, a number of dice to soak equal to the vampire's unmodified stamina against all damage, aggravated or otherwise. Wow.
If it's complete protection from sunlight, and that many dice for aggravated damage, If David had brought one down there and had the thought, however insane it may be, wouldn't have done anything to the cocoon and might have fucking scared David.
Yeah, with how flesh-crafted he must have been, his unmodified stamina must still have been high as fuck.
Sheet for Vsevolod Cerveni. He's one of the, the few characters I thought so important that I would make a full-on fledged character sheet for him. Yeah, his stamina, big deal. As a 6th generation vampire, 7, and that's not counting any modifications he may have made to himself.
Well, shit.